what we're quickly going to do is have a look at the preference settings for Lightroom 4. Now it's important that you understand where to find the preference settings, because what the preferences actually do is it can change the look or the way Lightroom reacts at certain times, and it also allows you to set some of the default settings for certain functions. Now if you're using a PC, you'll find it under the Edit, and usually it's located right down the bottom, and it'll have Preferences. For Mac users, you simply go to the name of the software, which is Lightroom, and you will find Preferences just down from the top. Once you click on it, it will open this dialog box, and you'll have a number of options: General, Presets, External Editing, File Handling, and Interface. Now, Lightroom is pretty good because most of these are already preset for you, and they've turned things on and off, and they've used the things which would be most useful to you. So you really don't have to do much, you just need to know what's here. Now if we quickly look in the General, you'll notice that it's already preset to English for you. Okay, you've got these two previous settings here which are automatically off. This shows splash screen during startup. That's just the credits for Lightroom. If that's ticked, then the credits appear. You don't want that, that's just wasting time. So even Lightroom has turned that off. But if you do want that function, you simply tick the box and it would be there. It's up to you whether you want to check for updates. I usually do, so I usually have that function ticked so that you're staying up to date with the latest versions and any changes, especially if you're connected to the internet all the time. This default catalog, this is important, rightio? You're going to have a couple of options here when you click on it, but you definitely want Prompt Me when starting Lightroom. And that means that dialog box is going to start where it will put the catalogs that you can choose that you want to use. So make sure you have that one, Prompt Me, when starting Lightroom. The rest of these are really just to do with import options, your sound configurations, whether you want frogs or heroes, how you want things to go. But you do have these reset options that you can click on, and all through here, this is where you'll find all the resets to take you back. Just going to import options, right here, every time a memory card is detected, then automatically Lightroom is going to show you the import dialog box, which is handy because usually you'll only connect a memory card when you want to upload stuff. Ignore the general folders that are in cameras, that's good. So, but sometimes you just want them brought straight in from the camera, so usually that's unticked. And this one here, I wouldn't tick this one because sometimes people shoot in JPEG and RAW, and they create two of the same images. Rightio? If you tick this, then this will treat that JPEG exactly the same as a RAW and bring it in as two separate images, take up more memory. And that's not usually the case. Most of the time we just want to bring the RAW image in, so it'll recognize their duplicates and basically only bring in one image. And it's usually the RAW image it will bring in. There's a whole heap of presets that you can look at. Once again, these are already pre-ticked and I wouldn't really change these. Apply auto mix when first converting to black and white. That's a major function that a lot of people use. It's already ticked, but once you start playing with presets, you'll understand and you can come in and maybe modify it. But this is where you come back to set them all to defaults. Settings, right, for textures, colors, all those great things. External editing, this is handy. Basically what you'll find is majority of the time this will be set to TIFF. Okay, what you really want to do is put it to a PSD because these days Photoshop really recognises that file. We're moving away from using TIFF. There's nothing wrong with TIFF, and I have been a big user of them over the past, but this day and age we'll tend to stick there. And then basically the colour space, you'll have a couple of colour space options. I always suggest you use Adobe 1998. It's the best colour range that printers can deal with. Pro Color is a new one that's out. Tend to stay away from that because it can be a bit deadly unless you know what you're doing, and you can have a whole heap of colour mixes which can really throw things off. So your camera recognises Adobe 1998 or sRGB. sRGB is just a simple amount of colours, so bring to that. Your bit depth can usually set to 16. My suggestion is drop it to 8 because what that will do, it will allow you basically to have all your tool functions in Photoshop, because not all those tools work at 16-bit, but they do at 8. And the resolution may be set at 72, put it up to 300. Okay, so anything you take into Photoshop to work on, straight away you know it's going to be print quality that you're dealing with. Unless you are specifically working on the web, and that's the type of image you work on, then that may be changed to 72. But what happens is, in external editing, Photoshop is the first one of the main ones you go to, so that's what's across the top here. It'll have your latest version that you're dealing with. You can also use external other programs. For example, you may want to go and use something like Illustrator, rightio, which is definitely, you know, another thing that we can take our photographs to do things with. You can find your Illustrator, you simply come through, click on it, choose it, and then you can choose how those images go into Illustrator. So you can preset it up for you automatically, and it'll be up and working. So this is very good. Make sure you set this up for the programs you want to work in, so those images go across in the format that you want. File handling, pretty good. The extension that we have for our digital negatives, you can either have it in uppercase or lowercase. Lowercase is the standard. With Camera Raw, you have a couple of options. 5.4, it's not the latest version, it's a version prior with 3, so I would leave it at that because that means you can work between files. The JPEG viewing preview that you preview, keep that as medium, don't make it too big, you're only taking up extra space. With your metadata, okay, here you can choose whether you want a dot between them or a forward slash. We tend to use forward slashes, so these are preset. In generating names, there's a whole heap of illegal things that you can add there. Basically, what happens is Lightroom will recognize that. It will replace those illegal characters with an underscore if that's what you want, or a dash depending on what you like, but underscore is pretty standard across the board. And you know, any file names that have a space will also replace with the underscore. So we tend not to leave spaces between things, especially in metadata. We tend to put underscores so that it sort of all flows. The cache here, when you're dealing with Camera Raw, this is really just a reservoir of where we do things. Don't get too involved with that. Leave those settings as they are. The interface, you can come through and change how things look, font size, whether you want them large, small. I usually, like them large. If you notice, small was the default setting, but I've changed mine to large. You can change the way your colours of your screens look, the dims. There's a whole heap of, they'll have default set next to them if that's the best option. For example, in your main windows and secondary windows, notice that it's medium grey, because grey is a really good tonal colour to use when you're working on colour images. It allows your eye to relax and just concentrate on the colours within the image. Keyword separators, you can have commas or spaces. I tend to steer away from spaces because if you have something like Johnson Street, it's going to treat Johnson and Street as separate words. But if you have commas after each of your keywords as separators, then then naturally it'll treat that as Johnson Street. So it's a better option. Okay, there's a whole heap of other functions in the film strip. We want all those things and tweaks that you can do. Typographic fractions is the best way to go there. So this thing's already set up. I wouldn't be too bothered about it. Just know that it's here. Have a look at it. The general settings are the main ones, making sure that it prompts you when starting Lightroom. Right, that's the most important one that I think that you should have set. But apart from that, know it's here. Know that you can go in, and if something's isn't right and you want to set things back to default, you can do it through here.